Okay, hi. Hello. So I'm a UX designer at Portland State, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about online learning and what I do, and hopefully kind of tell you a little story and make it fun at the same time. So I work at Portland State, and ooh, that sucks. So I work a lot with adaptive learning software, and the premise here is that students are going to start somewhere, maybe at A, and they need to get to Z. And we see a lot of linear kind of pathways in online experiences. So the whole really cool thing about adaptive learning is that it can be, students can take different pathways, just like on the web. It's not necessarily a linear process. So we do a lot with journey mapping and things like that, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So just a little context for you there. And the idea here that's I think is really important is that no matter what pathway someone's taking to get to their end goal, that it's accessible. So it's usable, it's accessible no matter what background, minority, access that you have, gender, no matter what you're doing and how you're accessing your materials online, that you are able to do that. So that's the focus that I take there. And kind of a guiding principle here is that accessibility isn't really a feature. We do have the web content accessibility guidelines as developers, but this is more a quality approach to our work and how we're developing to take all people into consideration. So I'm going to start with a story, because I'm a storyteller a little bit. So Emperor's New Clothes, if you've heard of this story, there was a king who really loved new clothes, and he had to have every suit that existed. So some people decided to take advantage of him and started telling a story that they had the most magical suit, but you could only see the suit if you were suited for your job. You had to be extremely intelligent and suited for your job to see the suit. So the king heard the chatter around town about this a magical suit and decided he just had to have it. And we have our swindlers here, as the story says. So he hires these swindlers, and they work all day and all night on their loom to build him the most magnificent suit, and but they're not weaving anything. So he's buying them all kinds of materials, products, threads. They're not using anything. He sends his most trusted advisor to see what's going on with the suit and where his money is going. But remember, you can't see it if you're unsuited for your job. So he can't see it, as nothing exists. But he is concerned and he's worried that this is going to affect his job. So what does he do? He goes back and says that it's the most magnificent suit he's ever seen. So more advisors keep going to look at what the suit looks like. They all say that it's amazing. It's the most amazing suit they've ever seen. Because they don't want to be the ones to say that nothing exists, that nothing is there. So the king decides he has to go now and see this suit. Well, he doesn't see anything. So he's now very concerned that he is not suited to be king. So he's not going to say anything. He's going to parade through town, and he has his attendants here carrying his train to his suit, and he's walking through town. This was fun. I had my dad photocopy these from my children's book, and I put them in here. He was like, "What do you need all these photos for?" But he had the book. It was still there. It still existed. So a small child starts yelling, but he has nothing on. He's not wearing anything. The crowd starts to gather. People start pointing. They're saying, maybe you're connecting the dots here a little bit. He's not wearing anything. So finally, he realizes that he's not wearing anything after all. So a big jump here. We don't want to end up naked or exposed with our web design, our web development. So we're going to kind of advocate for accessibility a little bit, make it visible. That's my connection. It might seem like a big jump, but to make it relevant, a couple things that you can do now. And things that we do in our work as well. So user maps around stress cases and user testing. So just a couple scenarios here for you. User maps and journeys are basically you're walking through exactly what a user might be doing to use your product, whatever you're designing. So for me, it might be we have a first-generation student with low internet access at home. We're designing an online course. Is our whole course going to be all videos? Probably not. That's going to be a little tricky for them. So we try to use these test cases to inform how we design materials, how we build our courses, and how we work online. Same thing within the software when we're developing pathways. We try to use these kind of stress cases to inform our designs to make them better. So that mapping can really help us prioritize development, our development needs, but also where the gaps are. Where are we forgetting and leaving things out? And especially when it comes to being able to minorities and their access online is really important. So no matter what your stress case might be, this can be really helpful by just mapping out different scenarios. The second one, user testing. This is such a big one. This is my accessibility team. So we actually test with a native screen reader user. Any software, any of our materials, we actually go through and look at every single piece. So we understand in the software where there's problems and bugs, whether it's content, materials, code, input, wherever we're working, we understand what the experience is like because we actually have her go through and test it. We do a little testing on our own, but we can't use JAWS or NVDA like she can. So this is us just, and my accessibility specialist too here, working, doing some testing there. And so that's a lot of teamwork, but being able to actually test with someone who natively uses a screen reader can be extremely informative. All right, wayfinding. I want to set a little bit of context here. This is basically like mapping out or creating kind of steps. So if you think of on a train, how it announces what stop you're getting off at, if you're someone who's blind, that's actually essential for you to be able to get off and know where you're going. Same as that's kind of a physical space example. We have the same things in digital spaces. We want to create paths, models, be able to describe structures for people using assistive or adaptive technologies online. So just like on physical spaces. So for example, if you are, a physical example would be if you're hiking and instructions say to continue straight and you appear to two forks in the road, you're going to be confused and frustrated because you can't really continue straight. So you're going to have to pick a choice, and is it the right one? I don't know. We kind of see this online a lot, especially in online classrooms, online learning environments, is we're telling people to do something and directing them into the wrong spaces where we actually want them to go. So, and here's another, I'll skip this slide and move on to this next one. Kind of create another example for you. We talked a little bit about web content accessibility guidelines. So we don't want this to end up being just a checklist. Are we meeting our checklist obligations? Because here we have met our obligations to build an accessible ramp, but I don't know about you, I would not want to try either one of these. So it might be that we need to do a little user testing to figure out what's working here and maybe some directions. So that wayfinding piece, so step 1 and 2 that I outlined, because this happens. And if you guys start to pay attention, you might notice this too. So these are kind of funny. So the goal, really, to just reiterate, is to make our experiences usable, not just compliant. To really, that user testing where you're fleshing it out and even working with people with disabilities or adaptive software technologies can really help inform your process. And I'll just give a physical and a digital example. So we have these tactile maps. They're everywhere at Portland State. But this actually really helps people not to just walk into the street. It can, if you're down on your phone, you're not paying attention and you feel it. So it can affect people whether you have a disability or not, but it can be actually really essential if you are relying on these. And another one, just based on my icon here for the digital example, something we found in our testing with software is being able to announce to a screen reader user that everything that they're experiencing on a page is the first item. So it actually, think of it as like a table of contents for that web page. What is it that they're seeing? There's how many navigation links, how many pieces of interaction are on a page. And software that doesn't have it is basically creates a whole lot of barriers because you have to go from top to bottom to try to understand what's on the page and where you want to interact with it. So really being able to use that wayfinding piece at that map of, okay, you have 8 navigation links, buttons, what are your headings, what's your structure, so that you know where you want to navigate and move. This is really critical in the software piece. So the last one is to bring it up. This is so critical because everybody can do it. At every point in every conversation, bring accessibility up, mention it, start learning about it, start advocating for it, because it might feel, if you've never started or even if you are in it, a little overwhelming. Because, and especially at Portland State, it's the law. We're federally funded, we're required to be compliant, but it's just a huge process. You're building, so really just start taking those small steps. As our shared purpose is to really just try to make accessibility as visible as possible. See, I brought the story back in. It was relevant, yeah. So just 2 slides on learning a little bit more, and this is just a little bit of the design piece, is that really to build accessibility is a starting place, right? Usability, functional, reliability, and then is the next step along with delightful, pleasurable experiences. And we talk about this with students a lot too, because we have faculty who aren't developers and their background isn't in designing or building, and yet they're in their building experiences. So we really need to start focusing on, if we want to get to these higher order level of design pieces, focusing on accessible and reliability. And this ethical design manifesto is a great resource. You can check it out. It's a cool project. And then just a couple links and readings if you're interested in learning a little bit more. That's it. Thank you.